The alarm woke Park from a dreamless sleep. She sat up fast, her heart beating hard in her chest. Red lights flashed on the ceiling of her small room. That meant only one thing: someone out there needed help. She pulled on her uniform and ran down the metal hallway of the rescue station. Her boots made loud sounds on the floor. Other crew members were running too. They all knew what the red lights meant. In the control room, the big screen showed a map of the outer territories. A small dot blinked on and off near a moon called 7. Had never been there. Nobody went there. It was a frozen place far from everything. The kind of place where people died. "What do we have?" asked. The young man at the computer turned to look at her. His name was Minu and he looked worried. "Distress signal, Lieutenant. It came in 3 minutes ago. The message is broken, but I can play what we got." He pressed a button. Static filled the room. Then a voice came through, weak and scared. "This is Sergeant. Transport ship down. Hostile fauna. Need immediate. 1 survivor, please." The message ended. Everyone in the room was quiet. Looked at the map again. 7 was 12 hours away if they flew fast. The surface temperature there was already dangerous. In 20 hours it would drop even more, cold enough to kill any human in minutes. "We go now," said. "Get my team ready." 15 minutes later, the rescue ship Morning Star left the station, sat in the main cabin with her team. She looked at each of them and felt proud. These were good people, brave people. Was their medic. He was a quiet man with gentle hands and sad eyes. He had saved more lives than anyone could count. He never talked about himself, but knew he had lost his wife to a sickness 3 years ago. Now he spent his life saving others. Lee was their pilot. She was small but fierce. She could fly anything through anything. Other pilots called her crazy. She called herself careful, trusted her completely. Was their security specialist. He was big and strong, with a serious face that rarely smiled, but had seen him cry once when they saved a child from a burning ship. He had a soft heart hidden behind all those muscles. "Tell me about 7, said. Pulled up information on her screen. Frozen moon, no human settlements. Temperature stays around -40 during the day. At night, it drops to -80 or worse. There's a research station about 200 kilometers from where the signal came from, but they only have 3 scientists. No rescue capability." "What about the fauna?" asked. The message mentioned hostile fauna. Scrolled through the data. The main predator is something called big creatures, 7 feet tall when standing, scales like armor, claws that can cut through metal, highly intelligent. The researchers say they hunt in family groups. Shook his head, and someone crashed there alone. "Not alone anymore," said. "We're coming." The 12 hours felt like forever. Tried to sleep but could not. She kept thinking about the voice in the message. Sergeant, she did not know him. She had never heard his name before, but now his life was in her hands. She wondered if he was still alive. 12 hours was a long time when you were hurt and cold and alone. She had seen many rescues fail because they arrived too late. Bodies frozen in the ice, eyes still open, looking at nothing. She pushed those thoughts away. Not this time. This time they would be fast enough. When they finally reached 7, the moon looked exactly like expected. White and gray and empty. Ice covered everything. The wind blew hard, pushing snow across the surface in waves. "I found the crash site," said, "bringing us down." Through the window saw the wrecked transport ship. It was half buried in ice and snow. The hull had been torn open. Not from the crash, she realized. The metal was bent outward in some places, like something had ripped through from inside, but in other places it was bent inward, like something with claws had tried to get in. "That's not crash damage," said quietly. "No," agreed, "it's not." They landed the Morning Star a safe distance away. Everyone checked their weapons and their thermal suits. The suits would keep them warm for about 6 hours. After that, they would start to fail. His bio-tracker is still active, said, looking at his medical scanner. The signal is weak, but I can follow it. He's about 300 meters northeast, inside some kind of cave system. Then that's where we go, said. They stepped out into the cold. Even with the thermal suits, could feel it trying to get inside her bones. The wind screamed in her ears. Snow hit her face like tiny knives. They walked toward the crashed ship first, wanted to see if there were other survivors, but when they looked inside, they found only death. The co-pilot was still in his seat, his body frozen solid. His face was peaceful. He had died fast, probably on impact. That was a small mercy. Let's keep moving, said. They followed Scanner toward the cave. The entrance was large and dark, like a mouth waiting to swallow them. Strange marks covered the rocks around it. Claw marks, many of them. Something lives here, said. He raised his weapon. Stay alert, told everyone. But don't fire unless you have to. We don't know what we're walking into. They entered the cave. The wind stopped immediately and the silence felt strange. Their lights cut through the darkness, showing walls of ice and stone. The tunnel went deep into the moon. Checked his scanner again. He's close, maybe 50 meters ahead. They moved carefully, watching every shadow. His heart beat faster with each step. Then they turned a corner and stopped breathing. Sergeant lay against the cave wall. His thermal suit was torn and covered with frozen blood. His skin was pale, almost blue. His eyes were closed. He looked dead. But the scanner showed a heartbeat, weak and slow, but there. He was alive. But that was not what made stop breathing. Pressed against his chest, tucked under the pieces of his broken body armor, were 3 small creatures. They had soft fur and small claws. They were sleeping, their tiny bodies rising and falling with each breath. Cubs, baby animals, alive and warm against a dying man's body. And at the cave entrance behind them, blocking any way out, stood the biggest creature had ever seen. 7 feet of muscle and scales and teeth, black as night, eyes like burning coal. The mother, she was looking right at them. And she was not attacking. She was waiting. 20 hours before the rescue team arrived, Sergeant was having a normal day. His transport ship moved smoothly through space. The stars outside the window looked peaceful. Everything was fine. His co-pilot, a young man named, was telling a joke about a robot and a cook. Laughed even though he had heard the joke before. Was new to space travel. He got nervous easily. Jokes helped him relax. They were carrying medical supplies to a small research station in the outer territories. It was a simple job. Fly there, drop the supplies, fly back. Had done this kind of work 100 times. He was thinking about his daughter. Her name was. She was 7 years old and she was afraid of the dark. Every night before he left for missions, she made him promise to come back. Every night he promised. He always kept his promises. Then the engine made a terrible sound. Red lights filled the cockpit. Alarms screamed. The ship started shaking hard. "What's happening?" yelled. Looked at the controls. Everything was wrong. The engine was failing. Power was dropping. They were falling toward a moon below them. "Hold on," shouted. He tried to control the ship, but it was no use. They hit the moon's surface hard. The world turned upside down. Metal screamed. Glass broke. Then everything went dark. When opened his eyes, he was in pain. His head hurt. His chest hurt. Blood ran down his face, but he was alive. He looked at. Was not alive. Closed his eyes for a moment. He had known for only 2 months, but 2 months was enough to care about someone. 2 months was enough to feel the loss. "I'm sorry," whispered. Then he got to work. The ship was destroyed. Most of the medical supplies were gone, scattered across the ice, but found a few things. Emergency food packs, 2 thermal blankets, a small heating unit, a medical kit. He also found his emergency beacon and sent a distress signal. He knew rescue would take at least 12 hours, maybe more. He had to survive until then. The wind outside was terrible. The cold was worse. His thermal suit was damaged from the crash. It would not last long. Looked around and saw a cave opening in the rocks nearby. Shelter. He grabbed his supplies and ran toward it. Inside the cave, the wind stopped. The temperature was still cold but not deadly. Sat down and tried to think. 12 hours, maybe more. He had enough food for one day if he was careful. The heating unit had enough power for maybe 8 hours. After that, he would have to use his own body heat. He could do this. He had survived worse. Then he heard the crying. It was not a human sound. It was high and sharp like a hurt animal. It came from deeper in the cave. Knew he should stay where he was. He was hurt. He was cold. He needed to save his energy. Whatever was making that sound could be dangerous. But the crying continued. It sounded so sad, so scared. Thought about his daughter again. He thought about how she cried when she was scared of the dark, how he would hold her until she stopped shaking. He picked up his flashlight and walked deeper into the cave. The tunnel was narrow and dark. The crying got louder, moved carefully, watching for danger. Then he found them. 3 small creatures sat in a circle around a larger body. The large one was dead. Its scales were black and beautiful but torn by deep wounds. Its eyes were empty. It had been dead for hours, maybe longer. The 3 small ones were crying. They pushed at the dead body with their tiny paws. They did not understand why it would not wake up. Cubs, baby animals, alone and scared. Looked at the dead adult. The wounds looked like claw marks. Another predator, he guessed. A fight over territory. The adult had lost, and now these bobbies had nobody. He should leave, he knew that. These were alien creatures, dangerous ones probably. Their species had claws that could cut through metal. When they grew up, they might kill humans without a second thought. But right now, they were just bobbies, cold and hungry and crying for a parent that would never wake up. Made his choice. He opened his bag and took out an emergency food pack. The food was made for humans, but it had proteins and fats. Maybe it would work. He moved slowly toward the cubs. They stopped crying and looked at him. Their eyes were big and golden. They were scared. "It's okay," said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." He held out some food in his hand. One cub, braver than the others, sniffed at it. Then it started eating. The other 2 followed quickly. They were starving. Fed them all his food, every single pack. He kept nothing for himself. When they finished eating, the cubs looked at him differently. Not scared anymore, curious, trusting. The smallest one walked up to him and pressed its body against his leg. It was shaking from the cold. Took off his thermal blankets and wrapped them around the cubs. They curled together, finally warm. But now was cold, very cold. Hours passed. His heating unit ran out of power. The temperature dropped, started shaking. His fingers went numb. His thoughts became slow. The cubs woke up and looked at him. They made small sounds of worry. Then, one by one, they climbed onto his chest. They pressed their warm bodies against him. They were trying to help him, just like he had helped them. Smiled. He wrapped his arms around them, holding them close. His body armor was broken, but he tucked them under the pieces that remained. At least it blocked some wind. He was dying, he knew that now. The cold was too strong. His body was too tired. But these little ones were warm against his chest. They were alive because of him. That was enough. Then he heard something else. Heavy footsteps. Something big was coming. He looked up and saw her. 7 feet tall, scales like black armor, teeth like daggers, the mother. She had been hunting for her cubs, and now she had found them. With a human. Waited for death. He could not run, he could not fight. He just held the cubs and closed his eyes. But the killing blow never came. He opened his eyes. The mother stood at the cave entrance, watching him. Her golden eyes looked at her cubs, warm and safe against his chest. Then she looked at him. Something passed between them, an understanding. She lay down at the cave entrance, her massive body blocking the wind. Warm air stayed inside. Cold air stayed outside. She was protecting him. Did not understand, but he was too tired to think about it. He just held the cubs and let the darkness take him. His last thought was of his daughter. He had promised to come back. He hoped someone would tell her that he tried. Stood completely still. Her heart was beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. Behind her, she heard slowly raise his weapon. She heard take a sharp breath. She heard whisper a prayer. The mother watched them all. She did not move. She did not attack. She just watched with those burning golden eyes. His mind was racing. She had been trained for many situations. Ship crashes, fires, medical emergencies, hostile environments, but nobody had trained her for this. A dying man, 3 alien cubs sleeping on his chest, a massive predator standing between them and the exit. What was she supposed to do? "Lieutenant," said quietly, his voice was tense. "Give me the order. 1 shot to the head, I can take her down." "No," said immediately. "She's blocking our exit if she attacks." "She hasn't attacked," said. "Look at her, really look." Was silent for a moment, then he understood. The mother was not hunting. She was not preparing to kill. Her body was not positioned for attack. Instead, she stood like a guard, like a protector, and she was looking at her cubs with something that looked like worry. "She's protecting them," said slowly, "but why is she protecting him too?" Looked at his torn suit, at his frozen blood, at the 3 small bodies pressed against his chest, sharing their warmth with him. The answer became clear. "Because he protected them first," said. Nobody spoke. The cave was silent except for the soft breathing of the cubs and the weak, slow heartbeat on its medical scanner. Made a decision. "Everyone put down your weapons." "What?" said. "You heard me, weapons down now." Looked at her like she was crazy, but he had served with her for 3 years. He trusted her. Slowly, he lowered his rifle. Put her pistol on the ground, set aside his emergency blade. Unclipped her own weapons, her rifle, her sidearm, her knife. One by one, she placed them on the cave floor. The cold metal made small sounds against the stone. The mother watched everything. Her eyes moved from the weapons to his face. Took a step forward. The mother's lips pulled back, showing rows of sharp teeth. A warning. "Easy," said softly. "I'm not here to hurt anyone." Another step. The growl from the mother's throat grew louder, deep and dangerous. "Lieutenant, please," said. His voice was scared. Kept walking, slowly, carefully. Her hands were open and visible. She kept her eyes on the mother's eyes. "You know," said, talking to the creature like it could understand. "Maybe it could. The researchers said these animals were intelligent. I have a brother. He's younger than me. When we were children, I always protected him. I would fight anyone who tried to hurt him." The mother's growl softened, just a little. "That's what you're doing, isn't it? Protecting your children. I understand that, I respect that." Stopped walking. She was close enough now to see the details of the mother's face. The small scars on her scales. The way her nostrils moved as she smelled the air. The fear in her golden eyes. Not fear for her cubs. Then she pointed at her own chest. Then she made a cradling motion with her arms like she was holding a baby. The mother tilted her head. She was thinking, trying to understand. Repeated the gestures. She pointed at herself. She made the cradling motion. "I want to help him," said. "Just like he helped your bobbies, please, let me help him." The cave was silent. Nobody breathed. The mother looked at her cubs. They were still sleeping against his chest, warm and peaceful. Then she looked at the dying human. His chest was barely moving. He did not have much time left. Something changed in the mother's eyes. The fear was still there, but something else appeared too. Something that looked like understanding. Slowly, impossibly, the mother stepped aside. The path to was clear. Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Move fast, get the stretcher ready, stay calm and keep everyone safe. They moved quickly but carefully. Nobody made any sudden movements. The mother watched everything, ready to attack if anyone threatened her cubs. Reached first. He checked the vital signs and his face went pale. He's bad, Lieutenant. Core temperature is way below safe levels. Heart rhythm is weak. He has multiple injuries. We need to move him now. Then move him. Prepared the emergency medical shots. He injected them into his neck and arm. Warm fluids to raise his temperature. Stimulants to keep his heart beating. Help me lift him, said. And moved forward. But when they tried to lift, the cubs woke up. They made small, sad sounds. They did not want to leave the warm body they had been sleeping on. The mother heard their cries. She took a step forward, reached for his weapon but remembered it was on the ground. Wait, said, everyone just wait. She looked at the cubs. They were crying, they were scared. They were losing the human who had saved them. Thought about what had done. He had given these animals everything, his food, his warmth, his life. He could have ignored them, he could have let them die, but he chose to save them instead. She could not let that sacrifice mean nothing. Took off her thermal jacket. The cold hit her immediately. It was like being stabbed with ice. But she did not stop. She wrapped her jacket around the 3 cubs, creating a warm bundle. The cubs stopped crying. They snuggled into the new warmth. The mother watched. She took another step forward and tensed, but the mother did not attack. Instead, she lowered her massive head and pressed it against his palm. The touch lasted only a moment. The scales were rough and cold, but something warm passed between them, an understanding, a thank you. Then the mother pulled back. She moved toward her cubs and gathered them gently in her arms. Without looking back, she carried them deeper into the cave, away from the humans. Stood there, shaking from the cold, watching them disappear into the darkness. Lieutenant said urgently, "We need to go, the storm is getting worse." Turned back to her team. They had on the stretcher now. His face was pale as snow, but his chest was still moving. "Then let's go," said, "let's bring him home." The storm hit them the moment they left the cave. Wind screamed across the frozen ground. Snow flew sideways, thick and fast. Could barely see 3 feet in front of her face. She was freezing. Without her thermal jacket, the cold cut through her like knives. Her fingers were already numb. Her face burned from the ice in the air. Every breath hurt. But she did not complain. She just helped carry the stretcher and kept moving forward. "How far to the ship?" she yelled over the wind. 200 meters, shouted back. "Maybe less, I can't see anything." Was at the front, using his larger body to block some of the wind. Was at the back, watching vital signs on his scanner. Every few seconds, he checked the numbers and shook his head. "He's fatting," said. "We need to get him warm now." They moved faster. The snow was deep in some places, up to their knees. Each step was hard. Each second felt like forever. His legs started shaking. The cold was taking her strength. She had given her jacket to those cubs, and now she was paying the price. But she did not regret it. She would make the same choice again. She thought about what had done. He had given everything to save 3 alien animals. Creatures that might have killed him if they were older. Creatures that most humans would see as monsters. But he did not see monsters. He saw children, cold and scared and alone. That was what made humans special, thought. Not their strength, not their technology, but their ability to care about things that were different from them. Their ability to look at a strange creature and see something worth saving. There, pointed ahead, through the snow could see the lights of the morning star. They had made it. They reached the ship and the door slid open. Warm air rushed out and almost cried from relief. They carried inside and laid him on the medical bed. Immediately started working. He connected tubes and wires to his body. Machines beeped and hummed. Numbers appeared on screens. Core temperature is critical, said. He did not look up from his work. Starting warming procedure. Everyone, I need space. Step back. She was shaking badly now. Noticed and brought her a blanket. You gave up your jacket, said, for those animals. Cubs, said. They were just cubs. Smiled. That was crazy and beautiful. Came over. His serious face looked worried. Lieutenant, you almost died out there. What you did, it was not protocol. No, agreed, it wasn't. It was right, though, said quietly. Saved those cubs. You saved them too in the end. That's what humans do. We save things. The machines beeped louder. Was working hard, injecting medicines, adjusting temperatures. Sweat ran down his face. Come on, he whispered to. Come on. You didn't survive all that just to die here. Fight. The minutes passed slowly. Nobody spoke. They just watched and waited. Then something changed. The beeping became steadier. The numbers on the screen started improving. His chest began moving more strongly. He's stabilizing, said. He sounded surprised. His body is responding. He's fighting back. More time passed, an hour, then 2. Slowly, color returned to his face. His fingers twitched. His eyes moved under his eyelids. Then finally, his eyes opened. They were confused at first, lost. He did not know where he was. He looked around the medical bay, seeing and her team for the first time. Where? His voice was rough and weak. Where am I? Moved closer. She took his hand in hers. You're safe, Sergeant. We're the rescue team. You're on our ship. Blinked, memory came back slowly. The crash, the cold, the cave. The cubs, he said suddenly. He tried to sit up but was too weak. The cubs, are they? They're safe, said, because of you. Relaxed, a small smile appeared on his cracked lips. Good, that's good. Why? Asked. He was checking vital signs, but his eyes showed curiosity. Why did you do it? You gave them all your food, all your warmth. You almost died for them. Was quiet for a moment. He looked at the ceiling, thinking. When I found them, he said slowly, they were crying. Their parent was dead. They were alone and scared. They didn't know what to do. He paused. His eyes became wet. I have a daughter. She's 7 years old. She's afraid of the dark. Every night I hold her until she falls asleep. I tell her that nothing will hurt her, that I will always protect her. A tear ran down his face. When I saw those cubs crying, I saw her. I saw every scared child in the universe, human or not. It didn't matter what they were. They were children who needed help. His hand squeezed. What kind of man would I be if I just let them die? What would I tell my daughter when she asked why I didn't help them? How could I look at her face and say that some lives don't matter? Nobody had an answer. Nobody needed to give one. Squeezed his hand back. You're a good man, Sergeant, the best kind. Smiled weakly. Then his eyes started closing. The medicine and exhaustion were pulling him back to sleep. Tell my daughter, he whispered. Tell her I kept my promise. Tell her I'm coming home. Then he was asleep again. But this time it was a peaceful sleep, a healing sleep. Stood up and looked at her team. Was wiping tears from her eyes. Was staring at the floor, his jaw tight. Just shook his head in wonder. Let's get him home, said. The morning star lifted off from 7 and flew into the stars. Behind them, on the frozen moon, a mother watched the ship disappear. Her cubs were pressed against her side, warm and safe. She watched until the ship became a small point of light. Then she turned and led her children back to the cave. She did not understand humans. They were strange creatures, soft and weak compared to her kind. But one of them had saved her children, and another had given her last warmth to keep them comfortable. She would remember that. She would teach her cubs to remember too. Some things were more important than species. Some kindnesses were too big to forget. 2 weeks after the rescue, stood in a large room at Earth Command. His daughter held his hand tightly. She had not let go of him since he came home. Around them, hundreds of people in uniform sat in rows of chairs. Officers, scientists, politicians, important people with serious faces. They were all here to talk about what had done. The man at the front of the room was Admiral Han. He was old, with gray hair and cold eyes. He had led Earth's military for 20 years. His voice was loud and sharp. "Sergeant," the Admiral said, "your actions on 7 were against protocol. You used emergency resources on non-human creatures. You put your own survival at risk. Some people in this room believe you should be punished." Squeezed her father's hand, looked down at her and smiled softly. Then he looked back at the Admiral. "With respect, sir, I would do it again." The room went quiet. Some people looked angry, others looked surprised. "Those cubs were going to die," continued. "They were children. It didn't matter that they weren't human. They were scared and alone. I had the power to help them, so I did." "They are predators," the Admiral said. "When they grow up, they could kill humans. You saved potential threats to our species." "I saved children, sir. What they become when they grow up is not something I can control, but what I do in the moment is my choice, and I chose compassion." The Admiral stared at him for a long time. Then something strange happened. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, almost like a smile. "Your choice of compassion almost got you killed, Sergeant." "Yes, sir. And yet here you stand, because your compassion was returned. The Mother protected you. Lieutenant Park's team risked their lives for you. Compassion created a chain of survival that brought you home." The Admiral turned to face the room. "Let me tell you what has happened since Sergeant's rescue. Our research station on 7 reported something remarkable. The who previously attacked any human on site have changed their behavior." He pressed a button and images appeared on the large screen behind him. Pictures of the alien creatures and humans together. "They approach our scientists now, not to attack, to observe, to interact. One female in particular, a large one with black scales, has been seen near the station many times. She brings her cubs with her. She watches the humans work. Sometimes she leaves food near their door." People in the room gasped. This was unheard of. They were known as dangerous killers. They did not bring gifts. "Our researchers believe she is the same mother from Sergeant's rescue," the Admiral continued. "She is teaching her cubs something new. She is teaching them that humans can be trusted." He turned back to, "You did not just save 3 cubs, Sergeant. You may have changed the relationship between 2 species forever. Your single act of kindness has opened a door that centuries of weapons and fear never could." The Admiral walked down from his platform. He stopped in front of it. "Some people think humanity's greatest strength is our technology, our ships, our weapons, our ability to explore the stars." He shook his head. "They are wrong. Our greatest strength is this." He pointed at its heart. "The ability to look at something strange and scary and see something worth loving. The ability to sacrifice ourselves for creatures we have no obligation to save. The ability to choose kindness when cruelty would be easier." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a medal. It was gold and silver, shaped like a star with wings. The highest honor Earth Command could give. "Sergeant, for extraordinary courage and compassion in the face of death, I present you with the Star of Humanity." He pinned the medal on his chest. The room exploded with applause. Looked up at her father with wide eyes. "Daddy, does this mean you're a hero?" Knelt down to look at his daughter. "No, sweetheart, I'm just a person who made a choice, the same choice anyone should make." "What choice?" Smiled. "To help someone who needed help, no matter what they looked like, no matter how scary things seemed. That's not being a hero, that's just being human." The story spread across Earth and beyond. Ships carried it to distant colonies. News channels broadcast it to billions of people. The tale of a dying soldier and 3 alien cubs became famous throughout human space. And something changed. People started talking about the aliens differently. Not as threats, not as monsters, but as neighbors, as potential friends. Exploration teams reported more peaceful contacts with alien species. Scientists found new ways to communicate with creatures they once feared. Not all problems were solved. Not all aliens were friendly. The galaxy was still dangerous, but a small door had opened, a tiny crack in the wall of fear between species. All because one man, freezing and dying on a frozen moon, looked at 3 crying bobbies and decided they were worth saving. Years later, Old would tell the story to his. They would ask him the same question everyone asked. "Why did you do it, Grandpa? Why did you risk everything for those cubs?" And would give the same answer every time. "They were cold, they were scared, they were children, what else was I supposed to do?" His would nod, understanding. Because that was the human way, not to conquer the stars with power and violence, but to light them with kindness, one small act at a time. The universe was vast and dark and full of danger, but wherever humans went, they carried something precious with them, something no other species seemed to have. The crazy, beautiful, impossible belief that every life had value, that every creature deserved a chance, that compassion was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. The galaxy would learn this lesson slowly over centuries. They would see humans feed the hungry, heal the sick, and protect the helpless, no matter what planet they came from. And when they asked why, the answer would always be the same. What else were we supposed to do? That was humanity, strange and wonderful, foolish and brave, ready to bleed for strangers, ready to freeze for the helpless, ready to lay down their weapons for a mother's grief. The stars were watching, and they were starting to understand. Humanity was coming, not as conquerors, as family,